What risk does Islamic extremism pose on the stability of Africa and the world? Does the African Union have the capacity to curb the spread of terrorism? And how is the Horn of Africa affected by Islamic extremism? And are the African countries failing to put good military and security systems to protect civilians? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. Africa has witnessed the sporadic growth of terror attacks from the Islamist militant groups, setting up new attacks in the north, west and east Africa. It has been a year since Al-Shabaab gunmen attacked the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya, which resulted in at least 67 deaths. Since then, there have been several other attacks in parts of the country, including churches and public places. In Nigeria, similar attacks have been carried out by Boko Haram, a terror group which is based in northern Nigeria that abducted over 200 school children. Today on Question Time, we ask the question, is Africa lacking containment strategies to halt terror attacks within the African states? My guest today is Dr. Sidney Mufamadi, the director of the School of Leadership and senior research fellow at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Mufamadi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we talk many other things, Syria, Iraq, and the surrounding areas, Afghanistan and all that. But I want us to focus a bit on Syria. The United States of America, Britain, and the Allies have been basically supporting and in fact are themselves involved in a lot of attacks in the name of trying to curb the spread of Islamic extremism and terror, or rather as part of their strategy on war against terror. What is happening there?
Well, you know, the Americans and their allies have been in Iraq since 2003. And the ostensible reason for going into Iraq was to go in, remove Saddam Hussein, end the violence, and bring about a better life for the people of Iraq. Today, 11 years later, they are still in Iraq, although they promised that they were going to be there for a very short period. They are still in Iraq. The level of insecurity has increased manifold in Iraq. The economy of that country has fallen into a state of utter dereliction. The better life that was promised is not forthcoming. No jobs. Great parts of that country are without electricity. You know that region. It's one of the regions where you suffer from sweltering heat.
Yes.
Which then means no electricity means no air conditioning, no refrigeration. So people are experiencing hardships. The region has become more unstable than it was before they went in. Now, the point I'm making is that the overall situation is one that is militarized. Now, that is the backdrop to the current campaign of air bombardments that is taking place in the Middle East. In other words, I'm saying it raises the question as to whether military solutions are feasible to a problem such as we are seeing in the Middle East.
What is the cause for problems within the Middle East? Is it Islamic extremism or is it oil?
Well, it's not a question that can be posed in those sort of simple terms. The fact of the matter is that there are many, many reasons that lie at the base of the conflicts that you see in the Middle East. But what we have witnessed up to this far, or what we have experienced up to this far, tells you that the best way of coming at the problem is to allow the people in the affected country to lead the process of searching for a solution to the problem, and the rest of the international community should be there to support.
Now, let's look at the similarities between the situation in the Middle East and Africa, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, there are many things that are happening on the continent today, on certain parts of the continent today, which have got less media visibility.
Yeah.
You see, for instance, we are talking about the air bombardments that are taking place in Iraq and Syria. These things are also happening relatively low intensity in places like Somalia, Niger, Mali, slightly outside Africa, in Yemen.
Yes.
Again, there's a lot of foreign involvement in this. It is leading to more or less the same outcomes, where the majority of casualties that are incurred in this conflict involve civilians. They involve civilians because when the outside forces come in, they implement what, in their best judgment, are the best methods of solving the problem. As I said, the Americans and the others have actually suffered many casualties, even in Somalia before, in 1993,
yes.
In the Middle East and so on. Now they are seeking to avoid face-to-face combat. They want to participate in these conflicts in ways that guarantee that they suffer no casualties. So in the Middle East, in Africa, they come into the battlefield using drones that are remote controlled. Someone is sitting in an air-conditioned room in Arizona in the United States, flying over the African skies, flying over the Middle Eastern skies, and from the sky, remote controlling these drones, releasing hellfire. No precision is guaranteed with respect to the ostensible targets that they are pursuing. And the result is that you have these collateral disasters of so many people who are innocent getting killed in the process. Now, it tells you that you have got people in the Western countries who are socialized in ways that desensitize them to the sanctity of human life. You know, you are just sitting somewhere miles and miles away, targeting people you don't know. No, as I say, no guarantee of precision. But the fact that all this happens on orders from political principals raises the bigger question as to whether here we are not dealing with leaders who have got whose moral and psychological barrier to killing is very, very low. And then are we not having a shortage of ethical leadership in the world. I think that is the problem. That is the question that is facing all of us today.
All right. I want us to take a break. When we return, we'll look at perhaps the effects of such actions on the continent itself. And later on, let's look at the lessons that Africa can learn. But I would also want us to talk about the role which these extremists are playing in not ensuring, but in making sure that civilians are attacked and killed. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
You can't have a gut feeling about other people's gut feeling.
Ngaba has continued the tradition of passing stories onto the next generation, using a platform that offers stories to a far more greater audience.
Zombie no go unless you tell them to go.
This is what the audiences all over the world knew Fela Kuti for.
Join Musam Khalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Dr. Sydney Polisani Mpamade, the director of the School of Leadership and Senior Research Fellow at the University of Johannesburg. Now, Dr. Mpamade, indeed, you've spoken about the quite sad scenario of airstrikes and all that, but the Islamic militants are also killing each other. Not even just each other, they're also killing civilians. So surely we cannot just point fingers at the US and Britain. They may be doing, some of the worst acts or conducting some of the worst acts on these countries. But let's also point the finger on those who are actually causing some of this.
Well, this matter is not reducible to a contestation between the foreign countries that are intervening and the extremists, because it's important to bring into the equation the generality of the population of the countries that are affected. As I say to you, if you are a national of Iraq who under Saddam Hussein, you may have had all manner of problems with Saddam Hussein, but you lived in a country where there was a more reliable supply of electricity, where there were more job opportunities than there are post the intervention, right? Now, what do you think about your current condition? So the majority of the people of these countries that are affected, and there are surveys and results that prove this, consider the occupying forces as anti-Muslim, as callous, in that they feel these people do not care. When we talk about airstrikes, some of the victims are people who were in funeral processions, people who were attending weddings. So you are walking under weaponized skies every day. Now, that is one set of issues. So that you need to understand that the resistance to occupation has got a much broader base of support than just it being a matter of the extremists. And it's not just a base of support that is Islamic. It is actually a secular base. Islamists, Christians, and atheists like you. Because this is a nationalist nationalist...
I'm still a Christian, Dr. Mfamati.
I know. That is a nationalist rejection to what they consider to be an imperial occupation. Now, indeed, some of the methods, and perhaps many of the methods that are being used in this violent conflict, even by the extremists, are actually terroristic. You know, your car bombs and so on. But if you are, that does not alter the fact that strikes are also terroristic. So I am saying here you've got the poor peasants' terror versus the terrorism of rich people. Rich people just happen to have high-tech superiority, and that is what they are using in the first instance to preserve themselves. You see, 9/11 happens in New York, and of course that is regrettable because so many people died in the United States, right? You expect a responsible leadership to attach equal value to the lives of people, whether they are in the United States or they are in Africa or they are in the Middle East. But now I am saying we need a leadership that is able to navigate all these things and be able to point to the strategic futility of using terror to try and end terror, because it won't happen. It just feeds into the cycle of violence.
Now, Dr. Mfamati, what do you do when you are Goodluck Jonathan? What do you do when you are President Kenyatta, right? When you are faced with the reality that there are attacks, innocent children are being abducted, all this in the name of the struggle, right? You may not have the firepower which the United States and Britain are using, but you're faced basically with the same situation, you know.
Well, you see, that's why I'm saying it's critically important that we look at the lessons of history. They give you a menu of options which is long enough to guide leaders of vision. You see, take the South African experience. I imagine that my new comrade Peg Botha would ask the same question that you are asking if he was sitting here in 1984. He would say, what do you do when they go to Mozambique and cross over and come and kill the people? He would ask that question. Yeah. That was the pretext he used to go and take the war.
And raid.
That's right. Destabilize our neighborhood. Mozambique, Lesotho, Botswana.
Yes.
And that is what they are doing, these Americans. They are taking they are extending the battle space from Iraq to Syria, from Afghanistan to Pakistan. That's why you are talking about AFPAC now. Yeah? Can you see what I'm talking about?
Okay.
All I'm saying is what African leaders should do together with the population of Africa is to pay attention to the need to build political systems that are inclusive.
Okay.
You get the point I'm making?
I'm going to give you more time to talk about the lessons that these African leaders should learn, basically, but only after the break. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we wrap up the program looking at the lessons for African leaders. This is Question Time.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Since its inception, the city of Durban has sent a group of designers on an internship program in Milan, the fashion capital of the world. The origins of belly dancing are unclear, but its history in Egypt goes back to the 18th and 19th centuries, where dancers were known as wawazi. Inala's original music is composed and performed by Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the multiple Grammy Award-winning South African isicathamiya group led by Joseph Shabalala and Ella Spira. Inala blends the rhythms and harmonies of native musical roots with live percussion, piano and strings.
Join Musam Khalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, like I said, is Dr. Sydney Polisani Mufamadi, the director of the School of Leadership and senior research fellow at the University of Johannesburg. Now, Dr. Mufamadi, I want to refer you to an article by Louis Arisi, who says somewhere here that the resurgence of the Islamist militancy puts forward a lucid picture of how there is a gross failure or lack of containment strategies to halt terror attacks within the African states. Do you agree with that type of review?
Well, I don't know what is meant by containment. What I do know is that since this notion of the global war on terror gained currency, we have seen many people and many countries lining up behind the United States, looking for leadership on how to deal with this problem, even in their national jurisdictions. Now, I am saying I don't think we are looking for leadership at the right place. Because you see, there are two American scholars who carried out a very extensive cost of war analysis, just looking at Iraq.
Yes.
That was in 2008. And that Iraqi debacle was 5 years old. And they made a determination that that war was going to cost the American Treasury $3 trillion. And it's a war which was financed through debt, which means the national indebtedness for America was worsening. That is one thing. Now, two, I'm saying so many lives of American people, Iraqi people, and others were lost in that war. Even as we speak, the global financial and economic situation is not good. You know it. We feel it every day. Which means the British Exchequer, the American Treasury, cannot underwrite all this irresponsible behavior that and expenditure that is taking place today unless it is at the cost of you and I. Now, the best thing to understand out of this is that there is no military solution to this problem. It's important to try, once we are facing the potential of a crisis to start with, a conflict, to try and resolve it when there is still an opportunity to resolve it through peaceful means. And therefore, we have to rely on traditional diplomacy in our search for stability, peace, and development.
How do you rely on diplomacy when you have pirates hijacking vessels, selling the goods from those vessels, or getting ransom to ensure that they go and buy ammunition and arms to go back and fight.
Yes, I think you are talking about very important symptoms of the problem. We have to go to the base of the problem. I'm not condoning piracy, but you need to pose the question also, where does this piracy happen, say in Somalia? Is it not happening in the seas, in the waters of Somalia? How many Somalians possess licenses for the exploitation of the marine resources that are lying underneath these waters? The point I'm really making is, you see, there are many Somalians who are in South Africa today. There are many Ethiopians who are in South Africa today. The Horn of Africa is the most intervened space in terms of a sub-region in the world. Per capita, the highest number of people who are displaced are from that region, which is the displacement we are beginning to see when people in Iraq, because of the intensification of the conflict, are beginning to run away from their homes into Syria, into Jordan. Do you understand the point I'm making?
Sure.
Therefore, I'm saying responsible leadership will go to the base of the problem, such as we did here in 1994. Such as we did here in 1994.
A quick one. What are the lessons? And I want you rather to give me lessons which are focused specifically on African leaders. Yeah.
No, but that's basically the point I'm making. I'm saying African leaders need to go into their own experience. I mean, the history of colonial struggles and the decolonization process of Africa. Every violent conflict we had on the continent ended up at the negotiating table. Is that not so?
Correct.
Why don't we start there? Why do we have to do so only after we've lost so many lives, after we have destroyed the infrastructure on which human subsistence depend? But I'm saying post-colonialism, the task of nation building, finding political dispensation and political platforms that are based on the need to be as pluralistic as possible, so that we don't have anybody who feels that the political and economic system that we have in the country is exclusionary and discriminating.
Dr. Sydney Polisan Mufama.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time. And let me just ask you the last one. Are we likely to see you back in politics sometime soon?
Well, I thought we were talking politics here.
Well, I'm talking the other politics.
This is the politics.
You don't want
that should be spoken everywhere. Okay.
You don't want to go to Parliament?
No. But I was there for 15 years. That was too long a time. I think it's important to allow fresh minds to come in, and hopefully they will be more responsible than we were.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was Question Time for today. Our email address, questiontime@sabc.co.za, or you can tweet us. Our Twitter handle is @questiontime24. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.